Shabbos, everyone. Today is Friday, January 10th, and it is Asara B'Tevet. It is the 10th of Tevet, which is one of the many fast days of the year. This particular fast day began and commemorates and reflects upon the siege of Jerusalem. It was a long siege, and so by tradition, we mark the beginning of that siege today. Um, the 10th of Tevet means we're sort of past the first quarter of the moon. We're moving towards the full moon of the 15th of Tevet. And also, interesting astronomic things to watch for right now are that many of the planets are up in the sky. Coming up in a couple weeks, seven of the planets will be in the sky at the same time. So right now, depending on when you look, you can see Venus, Jupiter, and Mars pretty clearly. If you have darker skies and and a telescope, you would also be able to see Saturn. Um, so check it out. Check it out when you get a chance. You can definitely. Last night, I definitely could see clearly Mars, Jupiter, and Venus. So um, this week's parasha is, oh, by the way, right now the Willamette River is flowing at 67,000 cubic feet per second, which is not that high comparatively for the Willamette. It's above the mean and the median, but the high was in 1923 at 214,000 cubic feet per second. The low was in 1977 at 6,060 cubic feet per second. So this week's parasha is Vayechi. It's the last parasha of the book of Bereshit. It is Noah Herb's bar mitzvah portion, and Noah's coming to visit us this week with his wife Bree. So see if he can remember it. The the parasha this particular week I didn't actually have the time to do the kind of research that I've been doing for these parashiot. So I wanted to share with you some things that are meaningful that come out of this week's parasha. So in this week's parasha, Jacob dies. Jacob dies. Joseph also dies, but I'm going to be speaking here about about the about the death of Jacob. So when Jacob dies, he collects all of his sons together in the room with him, and and gives them a bunch of what the text says is that he actually opened his mouth because he wanted to tell them what was going to happen at the end of days. But what comes out of his mouth is a whole bunch of strange and really obscure poetry going through each one of the brothers and their tribes, and talking about sort of features, characteristics of them, blessings that they will bring to the world, also curses that they will bring to the world. It's a very strange blessing. But from end of life blessing, but from this scene is derived the practice of creating an ethical will. So, an ethical will is essentially what you want to pass on to succeeding generations. So, your children, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, or if you don't have human children, what you want to pass on to the world from the perspective of your wisdom. So, this is an old Jewish practice. Um, People have been doing ethical wills for 1,000 years in the Jewish tradition. So I wanna recommend it's never too early to start creating your ethical will. What do you want to pass on? What things have you learned in your life that you would like to pass on to succeeding generations? The other practice that's meaningful that we get out of this is that when the brothers are there, they're visiting their father on his deathbed, on his sick bed. And one of the practices that we learn is that when you go to visit someone who is sick, the Shekhinah, the presence of God, hovers over their head. So, because of that, the practice in Judaism is that when you go to visit someone, you should try to sit lower than them so that you don't want to stand above the Shekhinah who is present. You want to be you want to be assume a posture of respect and honor for the person who is dying in the presence of the Shekhinah who is hovering over them. So that's another practice um, that comes from this parasha. Lastly, this parasha has something to do with the Shema, not from the text itself, but from the Midrash. So the Midrash says that when Jacob collected all of his sons around him to give them his sort of final words before he died, he looked at them and he found himself gravely concerned about the future. He saw these 12 individuals, each one of which has like very strong personalities, sees how they have been at each other's throats for many years, how they have betrayed each other, how they have hurt each other, how they've hurt him, how they've hurt other people. He notices, for example, the violence of Shimon and Levi, who destroyed a whole town of people because they to avenge the rape of their sister. So for example. So he goes through all the brothers and describes sort of most of them have sort of more of a curse connotation or a dark side, um, and some elements of strength or power or characteristics. It's important to notice too that there's 12 brothers, and by tradition there are 12 constellations. So if you're into astrology, each each constellation has connotes different personality traits that are, some are good and some are not so good, and the trick is to lift up, um, work with the toward a positive end, work with the negative aspects of whatever those signs are. So the 12 brothers are standing there, and he suddenly becomes really concerned about them and about the future of the people of Israel, of the descendants of these people. And the sons pick up on this distress. They pick up on this distress. And so they, intuiting what their father is struggling with and what he's afraid of and what is really, really blocking him from being able to speak coherently in this moment, picking up on that, they say to him, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, our father. Israel is Jacob's name. Listen, Israel, Adonai Havaya, our God, Havaya is one. In other words, we're in this together. Like we may all be radically different, but we are committing to this shared, um, sort of shared theology, shared relationship to God, of God being one. And that is sort of the banner of the people of Israel. So we are committing to that. Jacob is so moved by this that he says, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Blessed be the name of the glorious kingdom forever and ever. So the Baruch Shem Kavod was Jacob's exclamation of like, okay, thank God, thank God. Um, um, thank God you have that grounding. Um, to this day, based on partly based on that midrash, we to this day say the Shema and then in a whisper recite what the midrash says. Jacob says, "Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed," and then we continue with Ve'ahavta et Adonai Lehecha B'chol Levavcha U'chol Nafshecha, and so forth. So that is one of the explanations given for why we say the Shema and then whisper the name Baruch Shem, the phrase Baruch Shem Kavod after the Shema, but we say it in a whisper. We say it in a whisper for two reasons. One, we don't want to say it out loud because according to tradition, that's something that angels say, and angels have a somewhat antagonistic relationship towards humans. So you don't want to make the angels angry. So we say it in a whisper. except for one day a year when we are angels. That's on Yom Kippur, and then we say Baruch Shem Kavod out loud. Um, the other reason why we don't say it out loud is because the Baruch Shem Kavod is not part of the Torah. So what you're doing, you're saying Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. The next verse is Ve'ahavta et Adonai le'echa b'chol levavcha, etc. Baruch Shem Kavod is not in the text, right? It's something is added liturgically. And there's a strong opinion that you can't just go adding things to the Torah, so it's misleading. It would be misleading or confusing or presumptuous or a violation of this idea that you cannot add to or take away from the Torah to insert something like that into the Torah. So we say it in a whisper in order to create that, to create the sense that what we are whispering is actually not part of the verse. So here's my here's my message for this particular Friday. Good Shabbos to everyone. Hope you have a Shabbat of Shalva v'Shalom, tranquility and peace.